Welcome, brave souls, to Dreadful Diaries, where the shadows whisper secrets and the night holds untold horrors. If you crave the thrill of the unknown, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fellow horror enthusiasts. Now, dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into our first tale of terror. In November 1974, the quiet town of Amityville, New York, was shaken by a horrific crime that would haunt its history forever. The DeFeo family, 6 members in total, were brutally murdered in their home at 112 Ocean Avenue. Ronald "Butch" DeFeo Jr. was arrested and later confessed to the killings, claiming that voices in the house had compelled him to commit the act. The gruesome nature of the murders, coupled with Butch's chilling story, left the community in shock and disbelief. Just over a year later, in December 1975, the Lutz family, George, Kathy, and their 3 children, moved into the DeFeo house, unaware of its dark past. The Lutzes were drawn to the home's picturesque appearance and the affordable price, which was significantly lower than comparable properties in the area. They were excited to start a new chapter in their lives, but they would soon find themselves entangled in a nightmare. From the very first night, the Lutz family experienced strange occurrences. It began with unsettling sounds, scratching noises in the walls, whispers echoing through the halls, and the feeling of being watched. George and Kathy dismissed these as mere quirks of an old house, but as days turned into weeks, the phenomena escalated. Kathy began to have vivid nightmares about the murders, often waking in a cold sweat, screaming for help. George, on the other hand, felt an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. He became obsessed with the house, spending hours in the basement, where he felt an inexplicable pull. The temperature in the house fluctuated wildly, with certain rooms becoming inexplicably cold, while others felt stiflingly hot. The children were not spared from the house's sinister influence. They reported seeing a large, black, demonic figure lurking in the shadows, and one night, they claimed to have seen a pair of glowing red eyes watching them from the corner of their bedroom. The family dog, a golden retriever named Harry, refused to enter the house, often whimpering and scratching at the door to be let outside. As the haunting intensified, George began to change. He became increasingly irritable and withdrawn, often lashing out at his family. Kathy noticed that he would wake up in the middle of the night, staring blankly at the walls, as if in a trance. The once warm and loving father was now a stranger, consumed by an unseen force. Desperate for help, Kathy sought the assistance of a priest, Father Mancuso, who had previously been warned about the house's dark history. When he arrived, he felt an immediate sense of foreboding. As he attempted to bless the home, he was met with violent resistance. The air grew thick with tension, and he felt an unseen force push against him, causing him to stumble backward. He left the house shaken, warning the Lutzes that they were in grave danger. The final straw came one fateful night when George awoke to find himself standing outside in the freezing cold, holding an axe. He had no memory of how he got there, but the chilling realization that he could have harmed his family sent him into a panic. The Lutzes decided they could no longer stay in the house that had turned their lives into a living hell. After just 28 days, the Lutz family fled the Amityville house, leaving behind their belongings and the memories of a once promising future. They moved to a new home, but the haunting experiences followed them, leading to years of psychological distress and public scrutiny. Their story became a media sensation, spawning books, documentaries, and films, each adding layers to the already complex narrative. The Amityville house itself became a symbol of horror, drawing curiosity seekers and paranormal investigators. Over the years, many claimed to have experienced strange phenomena within its walls, while others dismissed the Lutz's story as a hoax designed to profit from tragedy. To this day, the Amityville house stands as a chilling reminder of the intersection of crime and the supernatural. Whether one believes in the paranormal or not, the legacy of the DeFeo murders and the Lutz family's harrowing experiences continue to captivate and terrify, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of true crime and horror. On the night of March 13, 1964, Catherine "Kitty" Genovese, a 28-year-old woman, was returning home from her job as a bar manager in Queens, New York. As she parked her car and began walking to her apartment in the Kew Gardens neighborhood, she had no idea that her life was about to be tragically cut short in a brutal act of violence that would spark national outrage and raise profound questions about human nature and societal responsibility. Kitty was a vibrant and independent woman, known for her warm personality and strong spirit. That night, she was approached by a man named Winston Moseley, who had been lurking in the shadows. As she walked along the dimly lit street, Moseley attacked her, stabbing her multiple times. Kitty screamed for help, her cries echoing into the night. What happened next would become a chilling testament to human indifference. According to reports, at least 38 witnesses heard her screams or saw parts of the attack from their apartments, yet none intervened. Some claimed they thought it was a domestic dispute, while others assumed someone else would call the police. The bystander effect, a psychological phenomenon where individuals are less likely to offer help in an emergency when others are present, was in full effect that night. As the attack continued, Kitty managed to escape and ran toward a nearby apartment building, desperately seeking refuge. Moseley pursued her, stabbing her again in the hallway. It was there that she collapsed, bleeding and in agony. Despite her desperate pleas for help, no one came to her aid. It was only after Moseley fled the scene that a neighbor finally called the police, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. Kitty Genovese was pronounced dead shortly after. The news of Kitty's murder sent shockwaves through New York City and the nation. The story was covered extensively in the media, particularly by the New York Times, which published an article that highlighted the apathy of the witnesses. The headline read, "37 who saw murder didn't call the police," igniting a firestorm of public outrage and debate about the moral responsibility of individuals in society. In the aftermath of the murder, the case became a focal point for discussions about urban life, social responsibility, and the psychology of bystanders. Psychologists John Darley and Bibb Latané conducted studies on the bystander effect, exploring why people fail to act in emergencies. Their research revealed that the presence of others often leads to a diffusion of responsibility, where individuals assume someone else will take action. Winston Moseley was arrested shortly after the murder and confessed to the crime. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. During his trial, he claimed that he had been driven by a compulsion to kill, a statement that further fueled public fascination with the case. Kitty Genovese's murder became a catalyst for change. It prompted discussions about the need for community engagement and the importance of looking out for one another. In the years that followed, various initiatives were launched to encourage people to take action in emergencies, including the establishment of neighborhood watch programs and campaigns to raise awareness about the bystander effect. The legacy of Kitty Genovese lives on as a haunting reminder of the consequences of inaction. Her story has been referenced in countless discussions about morality, ethics, and the human condition. It serves as a poignant call to action, urging individuals to break the silence and stand up for those in need, no matter the circumstances. In the end, Kitty Genovese's tragic death was not just a crime, it was a reflection of society's failures and a challenge to humanity to confront its own apathy. Her memory continues to inspire conversations about compassion, responsibility, and the importance of being an active participant in the world around us. The Tower of London, historic castle located on the banks of the River Thames, has stood for over 1,000 years, serving various roles as a royal palace, fortress, and prison. Its imposing stone walls have witnessed countless events, from royal ceremonies to gruesome executions. With such a dark and bloody history, it is no wonder that the tower is reputed to be one of the most haunted locations in England. The tower's ghostly tales begin with its most famous prisoner, Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. Accused of treason, adultery, and incest, Anne was arrested and taken to the Tower in May 1536. After a brief and highly publicized trial, she was found guilty and sentenced to death. On May 19, 1536, she was executed on the Tower Green, her head severed by a skilled swordsman. Legend has it that her spirit still roams the grounds, often seen wearing a white gown, her head tucked under her arm. Witnesses have reported seeing her apparition glide through the tower, particularly near the site of her execution, where she is said to weep for her lost life and the injustices she suffered. Another prominent ghost associated with the tower is that of Lady Jane Grey, the Nine-Day Queen. In 1553, Jane was deposed by Mary I and imprisoned in the tower. Despite her youth and innocence, she was executed on February 12, 1554, for treason. Her spirit is said to haunt the tower, particularly the area where she was held captive. Visitors have reported hearing her soft cries and the sound of her footsteps echoing through the corridors, as if she is searching for a way to escape her tragic fate. The tower is also linked to the tragic story of the princes in the tower, Edward V and his younger brother, Richard, Duke of York. In 1483, the two boys were placed in the tower by their uncle, Richard III, who sought to claim the throne for himself. The princes mysteriously disappeared, and it is widely believed that they were murdered within the tower's walls. Their spirits are said to wander the grounds, often appearing as shadowy figures, their faces filled with fear and confusion. Some visitors have claimed to see the boys playing in the gardens, only to vanish when approached. The ghost of Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, is also said to haunt the tower. Becket was murdered in 1170, and his spirit is believed to have sought refuge in the tower after his death. Some have reported seeing a ghostly figure dressed in clerical robes, wandering the halls and whispering prayers for the souls of the departed. In addition to these well-known apparitions, the tower is home to numerous other ghostly tales. Guards and staff have reported hearing unexplained noises, such as the clanking of chains, disembodied voices, and the sound of footsteps echoing in empty corridors. Some have even claimed to see the ghostly figures of soldiers from various eras, dressed in the uniforms of their time, patrolling the grounds as if still guarding the tower. The Tower of London has become a popular destination for ghost hunters and tourists alike, drawn by its rich history and the promise of encountering the supernatural. Guided tours often include tales of the tower's haunted past, and many visitors leave with a sense of unease, feeling as though they are being watched by unseen eyes. Despite its dark history, the Tower of London remains a symbol of resilience and strength. It has witnessed the rise and fall of monarchs, the struggles for power, and the tragedies of those who met their end within its walls. The ghosts that linger are a testament to the lives lost and the stories that continue to echo through time. As night falls and the shadows lengthen, the tower stands as a silent guardian of its past, a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. Those who dare to visit may find themselves not only exploring the remnants of a bygone era but also encountering the restless spirits of those who once walked the same paths, forever bound to the Tower of London. On the night of August 2, 2006, Robert Wone, a 32-year-old attorney, was found dead in the home of his friends, Joe Price, Victor Zaborski, and Dylan Ward, in Washington, D.C. Wone's death would become a perplexing case filled with strange circumstances, unanswered questions, and a web of intrigue that captivated the public and left investigators baffled. Robert Wone was a well-respected lawyer who worked for a prominent law firm in D.C. He was known for his intelligence, charm, and dedication to his work. That evening, he had attended a dinner party and was later invited to stay overnight at the home of his friends, who were a couple living together. The trio had a close relationship with Wone, and he often visited their home. When Wone arrived at the house, he was greeted warmly by Price, Zaborski, and Ward. The evening seemed to unfold normally, with the group enjoying drinks and conversation. However, as the night progressed, things took a dark turn. Around 11:30 p.m., Wone was found dead in the guest room, lying on the bed with multiple stab wounds to his chest. The circumstances surrounding Wone's death were peculiar from the start. The police were called to the scene, and upon arrival, they found the three men in a state of shock. They claimed that they had heard nothing unusual during the night and were unaware of any struggle. However, the evidence suggested otherwise. Wone had been stabbed 3 times, and the knife used in the attack was never found. The investigation quickly raised suspicions about the 3 men. They were all present at the time of the murder, and their accounts of the events leading up to Wone's death were inconsistent. The police discovered that the house had been cleaned shortly after the murder, and there were no signs of forced entry. Additionally, the 911 call made by Price was deemed suspicious, as he seemed more focused on the details of the situation than on the urgency of the emergency. As the investigation continued, it was revealed that Wone had been drugged before his death. Toxicology reports indicated the presence of a sedative in his system, which raised further questions about what had transpired that night. The 3 men maintained their innocence, claiming that Wone had arrived at their home in good spirits and that they had no idea how he had ended up dead. The case took a dramatic turn when it was revealed that Price, Zaborski, and Ward had a history of engaging in BDSM and had hosted parties that involved sexual activities. This information added a layer of complexity to the investigation, as detectives began to explore the possibility that Wone's death was connected to these activities. However, no concrete evidence emerged to support this theory. In 2008, the 3 men were charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit obstruction, but they were not charged with murder. The prosecution argued that they had tampered with evidence and misled investigators. The trial revealed a series of bizarre and contradictory testimonies, with the defense maintaining that Wone's death was a tragic accident. The trial concluded in 2010, with the jury ultimately acquitting Price, Zaborski, and Ward of all charges related to obstruction of justice. However, the mystery of Robert Wone's murder remained unsolved. The case garnered significant media attention, and many speculated about the true nature of the events that transpired that night. In the years that followed, the case continued to haunt the public imagination. Various theories emerged, ranging from the possibility of a random intruder to the idea that Wone's death was the result of a consensual encounter gone wrong. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the case remained open, and investigators continued to seek answers. Robert Wone's murder is a chilling reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the dark secrets that can lie beneath the surface. The unanswered questions surrounding his death serve as a testament to the fragility of life and the mysteries that can linger long after a tragedy occurs. To this day, the case remains one of Washington, D.C.'s most perplexing unsolved murders, leaving a lasting impact on those who seek justice for Robert Wone and the truth behind his untimely death. The story of Ted Kaczynski, known as the Unabomber, is one of the most chilling and complex narratives in modern criminal history. Kaczynski, a former mathematics professor, waged a nearly two-decade-long campaign of terror through a series of mail bombings that left 3 people dead and 23 others injured. His actions were driven by a radical ideology that condemned modern technology and industrial society, culminating in a manifesto that would capture national attention. Early life. Theodore John Kaczynski was born on May 22, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. He was a gifted child, excelling academically from a young age. Kaczynski attended Harvard University at the age of 16, where he studied mathematics. After earning his Ph.D. from the University of Michigan, he became an assistant professor at the university. However, he struggled with the academic environment and left his position after just 2 years, retreating to a remote cabin in Montana. In the solitude of his cabin, Kaczynski lived a primitive lifestyle, disconnected from modern society. It was during this time that he began to develop his anti-technology beliefs, which he articulated in a series of writings. He became increasingly radicalized, viewing technological advancement as a threat to human freedom and the natural world. The Campaign of Terror. Kaczynski's campaign began in 1978 when he sent his first bomb through the mail to a university professor. Over the next 17 years, he targeted individuals associated with modern technology and industrial society, including university professors, airline executives, and computer scientists. His bombs were meticulously crafted, often disguised as packages or letters, and were designed to inflict maximum harm. The FBI dubbed him the Unabomber, a name derived from the acronym UNABOM, which stood for University and Airline Bomber. The investigation into his crimes was extensive, involving thousands of agents and millions of dollars in resources. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, Kaczynski evaded capture for years, leading to a sense of fear and uncertainty across the nation. The Manifesto. In 1995, Kaczynski made a bold move that would ultimately lead to his downfall. He sent a letter to major newspapers, including the New York Times and the Washington Post, demanding that they publish his manifesto, titled Industrial Society and Its Future. In the manifesto, Kaczynski outlined his beliefs about the dangers of technological advancement and the need for a revolution against industrial society. The manifesto was a chilling reflection of Kaczynski's ideology, arguing that modern technology was eroding human freedom and leading to widespread psychological suffering. He called for a return to a simpler, more primitive way of life, free from the constraints of modernity. The media complied with his demands, publishing the manifesto in September 1995, which garnered significant public attention. Capture and trial. The publication of the manifesto proved to be a turning point in the investigation. Kaczynski's brother, David, recognized the writing style and ideas expressed in the manifesto as similar to those of Ted. He contacted the FBI, leading to Kaczynski's arrest on April 3, 1996, at his cabin in Montana. During the arrest, authorities discovered a wealth of evidence, including bomb-making materials and journals detailing his thoughts and motivations. Kaczynski was charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. In 1998, Kaczynski pleaded guilty to all charges in a deal that spared him the death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Throughout his trial, Kaczynski maintained that his actions were justified by his beliefs, viewing himself as a revolutionary fighting against the evils of modern society. Legacy. The Unabomber case remains a chilling reminder of the potential for radical ideologies to drive individuals to commit horrific acts. Kaczynski's manifesto continues to be studied and debated, raising questions about the impact of technology on society and the nature of freedom. Kaczynski spent his years in prison reflecting on his beliefs and writing further, but he remained a controversial figure. Some viewed him as a misguided genius, while others saw him as a dangerous terrorist. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of extreme beliefs and the lengths to which individuals may go to promote their ideologies. In the end, Ted Kaczynski's life and actions left an indelible mark on American history, illustrating the complexities of human motivation and the dark side of technological advancement. The Unabomber's legacy continues to provoke thought and discussion, reminding us of the fine line between ideology and violence. The Winchester Mystery House, located in San Jose, California, is a sprawling mansion shrouded in mystery and legend. Its construction was driven by the tragic life of Sarah Winchester, the widow of firearm magnate William Wirt Winchester. Following a series of personal losses, Sarah became convinced that she was haunted by the spirits of those who had died as a result of the rifles produced by her late husband's company. This belief led her to embark on an extraordinary architectural project that would consume her life and create one of the most bizarre homes in America. Early life and tragedy. Sarah Lockwood Pardee was born on September 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. She was a bright and ambitious woman who married William Wirt Winchester in 1862. The couple had one daughter, Annie, who tragically died of marasmus at just 6 weeks old. This loss devastated Sarah, but it was only the beginning of her heartache. In 1881, William succumbed to tuberculosis, leaving Sarah a wealthy widow with a fortune derived from the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. Following the deaths of her daughter and husband, Sarah sought solace in spiritualism, a popular movement of the time that involved communicating with the dead. She consulted a medium who allegedly told her that the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles were seeking revenge against her family. The medium advised her to move west and build a house for the spirits, one that would never be completed, to appease them. The construction of the Winchester Mystery House. In 1884, Sarah Winchester purchased an unfinished farmhouse in San Jose and began an ambitious construction project that would last for 38 years. The house became a labyrinthine structure, with no clear plan or design. It featured an astonishing 160 rooms, including 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, 47 fireplaces, and numerous staircases that led to nowhere. The architecture was a mix of Victorian and Gothic styles, with elements that seemed to defy logic and reason. Sarah believed that the constant construction would keep the spirits at bay, so she employed a team of workers who labored on the house day and night. The work was never-ending, as Sarah would frequently change her mind about designs and layouts. Doors were built to open into walls, staircases spiraled into ceilings, and windows were placed in the most unexpected locations. The house became a reflection of Sarah's troubled mind, a physical manifestation of her fears and beliefs. The haunting. As the years passed, stories began to circulate about the Winchester Mystery House being haunted. Visitors and workers reported strange occurrences, such as unexplained noises, ghostly apparitions, and cold spots throughout the mansion. Some claimed to have seen the spirits of those who had died from Winchester rifles wandering the halls, while others reported feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair. Sarah herself was said to have been deeply affected by the spirits she believed were haunting her. She often held seances in the house, attempting to communicate with the dead and seek their guidance. Despite her efforts, the construction continued, and the house grew more complex and bewildering. Sarah's death and the legacy of the house. Sarah Winchester passed away on September 5, 1922, at the age of 83. Upon her death, the construction of the Winchester Mystery House came to an abrupt halt. The mansion was left in its unfinished state, a testament to Sarah's obsession and the beliefs that had driven her for decades. After her death, the house was inherited by her niece, who eventually opened it to the public for tours. The Winchester Mystery House quickly became a popular tourist attraction, drawing visitors intrigued by its strange architecture and the ghost stories that surrounded it. Over the years, numerous paranormal investigations have taken place, with many claiming to have encountered the spirits of the deceased within its walls. Today, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a symbol of the intersection between tragedy and creativity. It is a place where the past and the supernatural converge, inviting visitors to explore the life of Sarah Winchester and the mysteries that continue to haunt the mansion. The house remains a testament to one woman's struggle with grief and her desperate attempt to find peace in a world filled with loss. The legacy of the Winchester Mystery House endures, captivating the imaginations of those who seek to understand the complexities of life, death, and the unknown. Whether one believes in the supernatural or not, the story of Sarah Winchester and her enigmatic mansion serves as a poignant reminder of the human experience and the lengths to which we go to confront our fears. The murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman is one of the most infamous and controversial cases in American criminal history. The brutal killings, the ensuing media frenzy, and the highly publicized trial captivated the nation and raised questions about race, celebrity, and the justice system. The victims. Nicole Brown Simpson was born on May 19, 1959, in Frankfurt, Germany, and raised in Southern California. She was a beautiful and charismatic woman who became known for her marriage to former NFL star O.J. Simpson. The couple married in 1985 and had 2 children, Sydney and Justin. However, their marriage was tumultuous, marked by allegations of domestic violence. Nicole and O.J. divorced in 1992, but their relationship remained complicated, with Nicole often expressing fear of O.J.'s volatile behavior. Ron Goldman was a 25-year-old waiter and aspiring actor who worked at a restaurant in Los Angeles. He was known for his friendly demeanor and was described as a caring person. On the night of June 12, 1994, Ron was in the area to return a pair of glasses to Nicole, a former customer at the restaurant. The murders. On the night of June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were brutally murdered outside Nicole's home in Brentwood, Los Angeles. The bodies were discovered by a neighbor who had heard a commotion. Nicole had been stabbed multiple times, and Ron was found nearby, also with multiple stab wounds. The crime scene was gruesome, and the brutality of the murders shocked the community. The investigation quickly focused on O.J. Simpson, who had a history of domestic violence against Nicole. On the night of the murders, O.J. was not at home, but he became a person of interest when police found a bloody glove at the crime scene that matched a glove found at O.J.'s estate. Additionally, blood samples taken from the scene matched O.J.'s DNA. The chase. On June 17, 1994, O.J. Simpson became the subject of a dramatic police chase that was broadcast live on television. After failing to turn himself in, O.J. was seen driving a white Ford Bronco on the Los Angeles freeway, accompanied by his friend Al Cowlings. The chase lasted for over an hour and drew millions of viewers, with many people expressing concern for O.J.'s well-being. Eventually, O.J. returned to his home, where he was arrested. The chase and the subsequent arrest became a media spectacle, with the public divided over O.J.'s guilt or innocence. The trial. The trial of O.J. Simpson began on January 24, 1995, and quickly became a sensational event, drawing intense media coverage and public interest. The prosecution presented a case that included DNA evidence, 911 calls from Nicole, and testimonies from witnesses who had seen O.J. near the crime scene. They argued that O.J. had a motive rooted in jealousy and a history of violence against Nicole. The defense team, led by famed attorney Johnnie Cochran, employed a strategy that focused on reasonable doubt. They argued that the evidence had been mishandled by the police and that O.J. was the victim of a racially biased investigation. The defense famously introduced the phrase, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," referring to a glove that appeared too small for O.J.'s hand. The trial was marked by dramatic moments, including the testimony of key witnesses and the introduction of evidence that captivated the public. The case also highlighted issues of race, domestic violence, and the media's role in shaping public perception. After months of testimony, the jury reached a verdict on October 3, 1995. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. The verdict sparked widespread reactions, with many celebrating the decision as a victory for racial justice, while others viewed it as a miscarriage of justice. Aftermath. The acquittal did not end the controversy surrounding the case. In 1997, the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman filed a civil lawsuit against O.J. Simpson for wrongful death. The jury found O.J. liable for the deaths and awarded the families $33.5 million in damages. In the years that followed, O.J. Simpson's life continued to be marred by legal troubles. In 2007, he was arrested in Las Vegas for armed robbery and kidnapping, leading to a conviction and a lengthy prison sentence. He was released in 2017. The murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman remain a haunting chapter in American history. The case raised important questions about domestic violence, race relations, and the media's influence on public perception. It also left a lasting impact on the families of the victims, who continue to seek justice and remembrance for their loved ones. The story of Nicole and Ron serves as a reminder of the complexities of. In the early 20th century, New Orleans was a city alive with music, culture, and a vibrant nightlife. The streets echoed with the sounds of jazz, a genre that had begun to take root in the heart of the city. But in the spring of 1918, a dark shadow loomed over the Crescent City, as a mysterious figure known only as the Axeman began a reign of terror that would leave the community in fear and confusion. The murders begin. The Axeman's first known victim was Joseph Maggio, a local grocer, who was brutally murdered in his home on May 22, 1918. He and his wife, Catherine, were attacked in the dead of night, their bodies found with deep gashes from an axe. The crime scene was gruesome, and the police were baffled. Just days later, the Axeman struck again, this time targeting a young couple, and the pattern continued, with each murder becoming more chilling than the last. As the body count rose, the city was gripped by panic. The Axeman seemed to strike at random, choosing victims from various backgrounds, but one thing remained constant: he always left behind a calling card, a cryptic letter addressed to the people of New Orleans. The letter. In a letter published in the local newspaper, the Axeman declared his intentions. He claimed to be a spirit of jazz, a lover of music who could not bear to hear the city fall silent. He demanded that every household play jazz music on the night of his next attack, or face the consequences. The letter read: Hell, March 13, 1919. Esteemed mortals of New Orleans. I am the Axeman, and I am here to bring you a gift. If you wish to live, you must play jazz music in your homes. On the night of my choosing, let the sweet sounds of trumpets and saxophones fill the air. If I hear the music, I shall spare you. If not, I will come for you with my axe. Yours in rhythm. The Axeman. The letter sent shockwaves through the city. Jazz clubs and homes alike erupted with music that night, as terrified residents scrambled to comply with the Axeman's demands. The streets were alive with the sounds of brass and percussion, a desperate attempt to ward off the looming threat. The night of the jazz. As the night wore on, the city was filled with the sounds of jazz. Musicians played in clubs, and families gathered in their living rooms, hoping to appease the Axeman. But as the clock struck midnight, a chilling silence fell over the city. The music faded, and the streets grew eerily quiet. In a modest home on the outskirts of the French Quarter, a young couple, Clara and Louis, sat huddled together, their hearts racing. They had played jazz all night, but the fear of the axeman still gripped them. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the night, followed by the unmistakable sound of an axe striking wood. Clara's eyes widened in terror. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Louis grabbed a nearby baseball bat, his knuckles white with fear. "Stay here. I'll check it out." As he crept toward the door, the sounds of jazz began to play softly from the radio in the corner. It was a haunting melody, a blend of sorrow and hope. Louis paused, listening intently. The music seemed to grow louder, filling the room with an otherworldly energy. The encounter. Just then, the door swung open, and a figure stepped into the dim light. It was the axeman, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat and a dark coat. In one hand, he held a gleaming axe, and in the other, a saxophone. "Play for me," he commanded, his voice a low growl. "Let the music guide you." Clara, frozen in fear, reached for the radio and turned the volume up. The haunting notes of a jazz solo filled the room, and the axeman's expression softened for a moment. He swayed slightly, caught in the rhythm of the music. "Yes," he murmured, "this is the sound of life." Louis, emboldened by the music, stepped forward. "Why are you doing this? Why the killings?" The axeman's eyes glinted in the low light. "I am a spirit of jazz, a guardian of the rhythm. I seek to remind the world of the beauty of music. But those who do not listen must pay the price." As the music swelled, Clara and Louis found themselves drawn into a trance, the melody wrapping around them like a warm embrace. The axeman, too, seemed entranced, his grip on the axe loosening as he swayed to the beat. In the 1980s, the Interstate 5 corridor, stretching from California to Washington, became the hunting ground for a serial killer whose reign of terror would leave a chilling legacy of fear and unsolved cases. Known as the I-5 killer, this unidentified predator targeted young women, often luring them into his grasp with promises of help or companionship. The case remains one of the most haunting chapters in the annals of American crime. The I-5 killer is believed to be responsible for the abduction and murder of at least 5 young women, although some estimates suggest the number could be much higher. The victims were typically in their late teens to early 20s, often hitchhiking or traveling alone along the busy interstate. They were vulnerable, seeking rides or assistance, unaware of the danger that lurked just beyond the roadside. The first known victim was 18-year-old Linda Mae Mayer, who disappeared in 1981 while traveling from her home in California to visit friends in Washington. Her body was discovered months later, hidden in a remote area. The case went cold, but it was only the beginning of a series of tragic events. In 1982, 21-year-old Mary Mimi Ann McGowan vanished while hitchhiking in Oregon. Her remains were found a year later, and investigators began to notice a disturbing pattern. The I-5 killer seemed to be targeting young women who were traveling along the interstate, often in states where they felt safe. Over the next few years, several more women disappeared, including 19-year-old Angela Blunt and 20-year-old 22-year-old, both of whom were last seen near the I-5 corridor. Their bodies were later discovered, each showing signs of violence and trauma. The fear in the communities along the interstate grew, as families and friends mourned their losses and wondered who would be next. Law enforcement agencies across California, Oregon, and Washington began to collaborate, sharing information and resources in an effort to catch the elusive killer. They created profiles of the suspect based on the victims and the circumstances surrounding their disappearances. The killer was believed to be a white male, likely in his 30s or 40s, with a history of violence against women. Despite the mounting evidence and the growing number of victims, the investigation faced numerous challenges. The I-5 corridor is a vast stretch of highway, and the transient nature of the victims made it difficult to establish connections. Witnesses were often unreliable, and leads frequently went cold. In 1986, the case took a turn when a woman named 24-year-old, who had been abducted but managed to escape, provided a detailed description of her attacker. She described a man with dark hair and a distinctive tattoo on his arm. This information reignited the investigation, and law enforcement began to focus their efforts on finding a suspect who matched her description. In 1987, police arrested a man named Terry Lee Pederick, who had a history of violence against women and was known to frequent areas near the I-5 corridor. He matched the description given by the survivor and had been linked to several of the unsolved cases. However, despite the evidence against him, Pederick was never charged with the murders, and the investigation continued to stall. As the years passed, the fear of the I-5 killer lingered in the minds of those who lived along the corridor. The media coverage of the case kept the story alive, but the lack of resolution left families and communities in anguish. The killer remained at large, and the question of his identity haunted investigators. The I-5 killer's reign of terror left a lasting impact on the communities along the interstate. The fear of hitchhiking and traveling alone became ingrained in the culture, as parents warned their children about the dangers that lurked on the highways. The case also highlighted the vulnerabilities of young women and the need for increased awareness and safety measures. In the years that followed, law enforcement agencies continued to investigate the unsolved cases, using advancements in forensic technology to re-examine evidence. Cold case units were established, and DNA testing became a crucial tool in the search for justice. Despite these efforts, the I-5 killer remains unidentified, and the families of the victims continue to seek closure. The case serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can exist in society and the importance of vigilance and awareness. The story of the I-5 killer is one of tragedy, fear, and unresolved questions. The young women who fell victim to this predator are remembered not only for their lives but also for the impact their stories had on the communities they left behind. As the search for the killer continues, the legacy of the I-5 killer endures, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk just beyond the safety of the open road. The murder of Mary Fagan in 1913 is a tragic and complex case that not only shocked the small town of Marietta, Georgia, but also ignited a firestorm of racial tension, anti-Semitism, and injustice that reverberated throughout the United States. The case centered around the brutal killing of a young girl and the subsequent trial and lynching of Leo Frank, a Jewish factory manager, which would become a pivotal moment in American history. The victim. Mary Fagan was a 13-year-old girl who worked at the National Pencil Company in Atlanta, Georgia. On April 26, 1913, she went to the factory to collect her pay for the week. After leaving the factory, she was never seen alive again. When she failed to return home, her family grew worried and began searching for her. The following day, Mary's body was discovered in the basement of the factory. She had been brutally beaten and strangled, and her body showed signs of sexual assault. The news of her murder sent shockwaves through the community, and the search for her killer began immediately. The investigation quickly focused on Leo Frank, the factory's superintendent. Frank was a northern Jew who had moved to Georgia to manage the pencil factory, and his status as an outsider made him a target for suspicion. He was arrested on April 28, 1913, just 2 days after Mary's body was found. During the investigation, several witnesses came forward, but the evidence against Frank was largely circumstantial. A key piece of evidence was the testimony of a young African-American man named Jim Conley, who worked as a janitor at the factory. Conley claimed that he had seen Frank with Mary on the day of her murder and later testified that Frank had asked him to help dispose of the body. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Frank was charged with murder. The trial began in July 1913 and quickly became a sensational event, drawing national attention. The prosecution painted Frank as a depraved man who had killed Mary to cover up his crime, while the defense argued that the evidence was flimsy and that Frank was being scapegoated due to his Jewish identity. The trial was marked by intense media coverage and public outcry. The courtroom was filled with spectators, and the atmosphere was charged with emotion. The prosecution relied heavily on Conley's testimony, which was riddled with inconsistencies. The defense presented evidence that suggested Conley himself may have been involved in the murder. Despite the defense's efforts, the jury found Leo Frank guilty of murder on August 25, 1913. He was sentenced to death, and the verdict was met with outrage from the Jewish community and many who believed in his innocence. The case highlighted the deep-seated anti-Semitism that existed in the South, and many felt that Frank had been unfairly targeted because of his religion and status as an outsider. In the months following the trial, public sentiment began to shift. A campaign for Frank's exoneration gained momentum, and appeals were filed to the Georgia Supreme Court. However, on June 21, 1915, the court upheld Frank's conviction, and his fate seemed sealed. On the night of August 16, 1915, a group of men, many of whom were prominent citizens of Marietta, gathered and formed a lynch mob. They broke into the prison where Frank was being held and abducted him. The mob took Frank to a nearby tree and hanged him, leaving his body to be discovered the next day. The lynching of Leo Frank sent shockwaves through the nation. It was a brutal act of vigilante justice that underscored the racial and religious tensions of the time. The event sparked outrage among Jewish communities across the country and led to a renewed focus on civil rights and the fight against anti-Semitism. In the years following Frank's lynching, the case continued to resonate. It became a symbol of the dangers of mob mentality and the failures of the justice system. The Anti-Defamation League, ADL, was founded in 1913 in response to the anti-Semitism that Frank faced, and it aimed to combat prejudice and discrimination against Jews. In 1986, nearly 70 years after his death, Leo Frank was posthumously pardoned by the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles, acknowledging the injustices he faced during his trial and the subsequent lynching. The case remains a poignant reminder of the deep-seated prejudices that can influence justice and the importance of protecting the rights of all individuals, regardless of their background. The murder of Mary Fagan and the lynching of Leo Frank serve as a tragic chapter in American history, highlighting the intersection of crime, race, and injustice. The legacy of this case continues to be studied and discussed, as it raises important questions about the nature of justice and the impact of societal biases on. In the spring of 1946, the small town of Texarkana, straddling the Texas-Arkansas border, was gripped by a wave of fear that would haunt its residents for decades. The idyllic community, known for its friendly atmosphere and close-knit neighborhoods, became the hunting ground for a masked assailant who would come to be known as the Phantom Killer. The first attack occurred on the night of February 22, 1946, when high school sweethearts Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore parked their car on a secluded road known as Lover's Lane. As they sat in the car, enjoying each other's company, a figure approached. The assailant, wearing a white mask and armed with a .32 caliber pistol, forced them out of the vehicle. In a brutal act of violence, he shot both teenagers, leaving them lifeless in the moonlight. The crime sent shockwaves through the community, but it was only the beginning. Just weeks later, on March 24, another couple, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry, found themselves in a similar situation. Parked in a remote area, they were confronted by the Phantom Killer. This time, however, the couple managed to survive. The assailant demanded that Hollis reveal his wallet, then struck him in the head with the gun. He then turned his attention to Larry, assaulting her before fleeing the scene. The couple's harrowing escape provided crucial details to law enforcement, but the killer remained at large. As the spring progressed, the fear in Texarkana escalated. The police launched a massive manhunt, employing local citizens and even the Texas Rangers to assist in the search for the elusive killer. The community was on high alert, with residents forming patrols and taking extra precautions to protect themselves. The Phantom Killer had turned the once peaceful town into a place of paranoia and dread. On May 3, 1946, the killer struck again. This time, he targeted another couple, 29-year-old Betty Jo Booker and her friend, Paul Martin. After a night of music at a local dance, the two were found dead in a remote area, their bodies showing signs of a violent struggle. The killer had escalated his brutality, and the police were left scrambling for leads. Despite numerous tips and sightings, the investigation yielded few results. The killer's ability to evade capture only fueled the fear and speculation among the townspeople. Theories abounded, with some believing the killer was a local resident, while others suggested he might be a drifter passing through the area. The media sensationalized the story, dubbing the assailant the Phantom Killer, and the case became a national sensation. As summer approached, the attacks ceased, but the fear lingered. The police continued to investigate, interviewing hundreds of potential suspects and following countless leads, but the Phantom Killer seemed to vanish into thin air. The case grew cold, and the community was left to grapple with the trauma of the unsolved murders. In the years that followed, various suspects emerged, but none were ever definitively linked to the crimes. Theories continued to circulate, and the legend of the Phantom Killer became ingrained in Texarkana's history. The case remained open, a haunting reminder of the violence that had shattered the town's peace. Decades later, the story of the Phantom Killer still captivates the imagination of true crime enthusiasts and historians alike. The unsolved murders have inspired books, documentaries, and even films, ensuring that the legacy of the Phantom Killer endures. The fear that once gripped Texarkana may have faded, but the mystery of the masked assailant remains, a chilling chapter in the annals of American crime history. As the years pass, the question lingers, who was the Phantom Killer? And will the truth ever be uncovered? The residents of Texarkana may never know, but the shadow of that dark spring in 1946 continues to loom over the town, a reminder of the fragility of safety and the darkness that can lurk just beyond the light. In the early hours of January 15, 1947, a gruesome discovery was made in a vacant lot in Leimert Park, Los Angeles. The body of a young woman, later identified as Elizabeth Short, was found mutilated and posed in a manner that would shock the nation. This horrific crime would come to be known as the Black Dahlia murder, a case that remains one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. She was the third of 5 daughters in a family that faced financial difficulties. After her parents' divorce, Short moved to California in the early 1940s, where she sought to pursue a career in acting. Although she had aspirations of becoming a star, her life was marked by struggle and instability. Short was known for her striking beauty, characterized by her dark hair and pale complexion, which earned her the nickname Black Dahlia, a reference to the film noir movie The Blue Dahlia that was popular at the time. On the day of her discovery, Elizabeth's body was found severed at the waist, drained of blood, and meticulously cleaned. Her face was disfigured, with deep cuts carved into her mouth, creating a grotesque smile. The body was posed with her hands over her head, and her legs were spread apart. The brutality of the crime shocked the public and drew immediate media attention. The Los Angeles Police Department launched an extensive investigation, but the case quickly became a media sensation, with reporters and photographers flocking to the scene. As the investigation unfolded, the police received numerous tips and leads, but many were false or misleading. The media sensationalized the case, dubbing Short the Black Dahlia, and portraying her as a femme fatale. This portrayal obscured the reality of her life, which was marked by hardship and vulnerability. The public became fascinated with the mystery surrounding her death, and various theories emerged regarding her killer. One of the most prominent theories suggested that Short had been involved with several men, including prominent figures in Hollywood, which led to speculation about a possible connection to the entertainment industry. The police interviewed numerous suspects, including known criminals and individuals with ties to Short, but no solid evidence emerged to identify her killer. As the investigation continued, the case took a bizarre turn. In late January 1947, a man claiming to be the killer sent a letter to the Los Angeles Examiner, taunting the police and the media. The letter included details about the murder that had not been made public, further fueling speculation about the identity of the murderer. The letter was signed "The Black Dahlia Avenger," and it only deepened the mystery surrounding Short's death. Despite the extensive investigation, the case went cold. The police received thousands of tips, but none led to a breakthrough. Over the years, various suspects emerged, including a doctor, a former police officer, and even a well-known actor, but none were ever charged. The lack of physical evidence and the passage of time made it increasingly difficult to solve the case. In the decades that followed, the Black Dahlia murder became a cultural phenomenon. Books, films, and documentaries explored the case, each offering new theories and interpretations. The mystery surrounding Elizabeth Short's death captured the imagination of the public, and her story became intertwined with the darker side of Hollywood. In 2017, the case was revisited when a new book, The Black Dahlia: The Definitive Investigation, was published, presenting new evidence and theories about the murder. The author, a former police officer, suggested that the killer may have been a man named George Hodel, a physician with a troubled past. Hodel was never charged in connection with the murder, but the theory reignited interest in the case. Despite the numerous theories and investigations, the identity of Elizabeth Short's killer remains unknown. The Black Dahlia murder is a haunting reminder of the unsolved mysteries that linger in the shadows of history. Elizabeth Short's life, marked by dreams and aspirations, was tragically cut short, and her story continues to resonate with those who seek justice for the victims of violence. As the years pass, the case remains open, and the search for answers continues. The Black Dahlia has become a symbol of the unsolved, a testament to the complexities of human nature and the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. Elizabeth Short's legacy endures, a reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring quest for truth in a world filled with secrets.